Go ahead and start on time. So, onegaishimasu. Okay, so this is going to be an interesting class because what I have to work with basically left me thinking about some things that I thought I'd share with you. I picked out an article that was written, I think it was written for Tricycle. That's a Buddhist magazine by Ken MacLeod. I'm only going to read half the article today, and then I'm going to read the second half of the article next Monday. Just because it's so long, but I wanted to cut stuff out of it and trim it, but I just went, oh, no, this is too good. I got to leave this in. No, this is really good too. Got to leave that in. Crap, it's like 3 pages long. I can't read that. Okay, we'll condense it down to 1 page, 2 pages, and then we'll read 1 page tonight and 1 page next week. So we are going to go over number 6 and number 7. And we're getting towards the end of etiquette. And number 6, treat your training tools with respect. Your gi should always be clean and mended. Your ken and jo and tanto should be in good condition and in their appropriate places when not in use. Number 7, a pair of slippers is part of your training outfit. Shoes are clumsy and inappropriate when stepping on and off the mat, and barefoot is out of the question. Slippers must always be left neatly facing away from the mat. If someone's slippers are not in order, correct it immediately. In addition, a large space must be left empty of the slippers just outside the entrance to the sensei's office to allow the slippers of the sensei and his or her assistants. It's kind of a Maui thing because the dojo office is right next to the mat, so that may not apply at other places. But what I selected to read to you, let's see how that goes. So I'll start with it. One of the fundamental teachings of Mahayana, and that's Zen Buddhism for those of you who don't know, is that every being has the potential for awakening. Yet, out of the billions of people on this planet, the overwhelming majority are locked by necessity or by choice into materialistic approaches to life. In all probability, no more than a few million have even a possibility of spiritual practice, and of those, probably only a few thousand may actually touch the mystical experience we call awakening. We are deeply conditioned to think and feel that those few thousand people are in some way special. Many of us want to be one of them. Most religious traditions would have us believe in some form of specialness, whether they view the specialness as due to the grace of God, the ripening efforts made in previous lives, or the result of our own efforts here and now. What if it's just a matter of chance? Plain, ordinary chance. It is much simpler explanation, and I've always been a fan of Occam's razor. How many seeds does the average tree produce each year? It's almost certainly in the thousands and possibly in the tens of thousands for some species. How many of those seeds become trees? Probably less than 1 seed per tree. Mother Nature is nothing if not redundant, but when it comes to growth processes, redundancy is vital. In growth processes, the aim is not to maximize output and reduce costs, as if it is in manufacturing, but to maximize potential and reduce the likelihood of disaster. In evolution, disaster is the failure to reproduce. Thus, Mother Nature goes overboard when it comes to reproduction, counteracting low probabilities with very large numbers and producing thousands, if not tens of thousands of seeds to ensure that one germinates and carries on the species. The few seeds that do germinate are in no way special. They aren't different from those that fall on rocks or into rivers. They just happen to land in a good place, even if that good place is between a couple of rocks on a granite outcrop on a windswept mountain or a crack in the sidewalk in a concrete jungle. We assume the seeds that germinate were lucky, but we really don't know. Maybe the life of a germinating seed is hell, and a seed would be better off to land on a rocky ground and never have to deal with the whole growth process. I've heard more than a few teachers, and myself included, say to prospective students, only take this path if you have to. If you can live your life in another way, do so. But if you have to make this journey, this is what it's like. In any event, the seeds that do not germinate haven't done anything wrong, which means that the seeds that do germinate haven't done anything right either. That's just what happened. This whole business about being special is a problem in practice. It reinforces a sense of identity. Teachings such as these were intended to inspire people to enter a mystery, and may have served to encourage people in much harsher circumstances than ours and open them to greater possibilities. They were probably helpful and effective in their original culture settings, and at least for a time. But in our hyper-individualistic culture, that same teaching often has a different effect, reinforcing the beliefs and identity and independence that we're trying to dismantle. Basically, any idea that you are special in some way and destined to be awake is a sign of delusion. Any idea that you can bring about your own awakening through your own efforts is a sign of delusion. And any idea that awakening comes from the force outside of us as a blessing or a grace is also a sign of delusion. These are all the stories we tell ourselves to explain what a mystery is. When we practice, we often fall into the idea that we are the active agent, that we are making something happen, that we are going to achieve something. I thought this way too for a long time. Eventually, however, I came to understand that it is completely wrong-headed way of thinking. And that's the first part of the article. And I wanted to read that because we get sucked into this being special idea. And we even take it to the point to our weapons. Like, the article says, hey, take care of your weapons, have them in a special place. We even have special weapons that we put in the dojo, that are at the showman that nobody uses. One time I saw Suzuki Sensei reach over and just grab his Ken because I think his Ken was there one time and he just started using it. And I remember one time even Curtis Sensei, we had Suzuki Sensei's Joe in the showman. And one time Suzuki Sensei picked up his Joe and said, I want everyone to touch this. Just feel it. It's oblong. It's not perfectly circle. We tend to want the most perfect, straightest Joe. I see people at headquarters looking at the Kens, ooh, yeah, ooh, maybe this one. Oh, Sensei, come over here and check this. Which one do you think I should get? I'm telling you, Suzuki Sensei was never like that in a way. He would say, just give me one Ken, give me one bell. Doesn't matter, just give me one and I'll do it, because it's not anything about being special or having a special weapon or tool. But we sure like that idea. I mean, I love that idea. I used to have a special Ken and, what have you, oh, don't touch that Ken, that's so-and-so's Ken. Of course, the teacher's weapons are his weapons and we don't want to use them, like we've said in previous etiquette sections. But, when it comes to yours, training is training. It's not about you that's doing anything. It's about what the training is doing to you. We kind of get that reversed sometimes, I think. And I read a lot, spoken a little, but I'd like to get everybody else's input on this. I mean, we can talk about the etiquette, and I think this is kind of a hidden meaning of some of these etiquettes. I picked these out. We tend to, oh, this gi, I only buy a gi from this place. The writing on the gi has to be this way. We get so caught up in our stuff that we forget it's not about the stuff. People have closet fulls of stuff. I do, at least. Got a shelf full of books of stuff. And when Suzuki Sensei had to leave his house and he got moved into an assisted living place, I was there. It was crushing to see him sit in his chair and people just bag stuff up. I'm talking garbage bags full of stuff. Suzuki Sensei kept everything. Ask Curtis Sensei. I'm telling you, Curtis Sensei would go through the office and go, do we really need this? Suzuki Sensei, no, don't throw that away. That's important, he really liked to have everything organized and stuff. But when he had to move into this assisted living place, I mean, he had to give it up, and he didn't blink. He wasn't attached to any of it. He just said, let it go. It was no issue. Didn't get stuck. He didn't get, oh, don't throw that out. He wasn't like that in the end. It was just, his son was there, and uh, his wife's daughter was there, and I was there, and I mean, literally, they were bagging stuff up in grocery bag in black trash bags. So we salvaged what we could. We brought a lot of stuff to the dojo, of course, and that's in our museum there downstairs. And it's really good to have that stuff. But you have to look at that stuff as more as inspirational rather than it's a thing, I don't know. It's just, I'd like to get your guys' take on this because I'm sure you guys have a lot of stuff like me. And we tend to, that gets in the way, I think, a lot of times of our practice. And does anybody want to volunteer to talk, or can I just pick on somebody? I can just pick on people. That's what I usually do. But I'd like to hear Christoph start off. He's like, no, not me.
Good morning, Sensei.
Good morning.
It's tough. Yeah. I tend to agree. We have this habit of accumulating things and hanging on them. That's for sure. Yeah, different things. But if I may, I would like to come back to what you just read, because yes, very interesting to hear this proposal that there's nothing special about us, and things happen because in a way, almost because of statistical reason. You take this example of the tree and the seeds, and some of the seeds germinate, some of the seeds don't have a chance to germinate, and that's it. And I think there is room for clarification when we confront this speech to the other type of speech we have in the Aikido practice when we speak of the importance of the universe and the fact that we are the center of the universe, and we have yes, we sort of are invited to accept some sort of exceptionality. I don't know, but the word universe is big, is somehow carrying a lot of heaviness, and to me, accepting the fact that we are the center of the universe, but we are not special. Maybe this is compatible, but it probably deserves a bit of discussion and explanation.
Yeah, I think, of course. And I think, there's a lot of comparisons. It's both special and not special. It's both. And it's like, when the Zen story where it's both two and one. It's not both. It's both two and one. It's not just one. It's both, singular, we're connected as one, but yes, we're also individuals, and we have our individual nature. It's both. And I think this, and I've only read half the article, so come back next week and you'll see where he's going with this. But it's stating that we tend to think of it as this is special, I am the center. Of course, if you say I am the center of the universe, that can be also very egotistical. I mean, I'm sure if you've attended any of Shaner Sensei's classes, he tells a story about him taking he was doing his doctoral thesis, and the teacher was Thomas Cassius, I believe, from the University of Hawaii, and he took him to see Toi Sensei give a speech in Honolulu. And he thought, I'm going to have him do this. This way I can center my dissertation on Toi Sensei's teaching. It's going to be fantastic. And Toi Sensei's got his gi on, or I think he's got a robe on, and kimono. And he's got a big lei, and he's leaning back on his heels, and he takes the microphone and says, I am the center of the universe. And about that time, Cassius says, no, you're not doing your dissertation on this guy. I mean, because the guy didn't know him and he really didn't know what he was talking about. And so there's that aspect too. So I think, I wouldn't say combative nature, but yeah, we have to also look at things, and that's why we have a teacher to help us. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because, we tend to get stuck, I think, on special stuff. And that's not the meaning. That's not the meaning.
I agree.
Charles Boyer Sensei, what do you think? What do you think, buddy?
Oh, thank you very much, Sensei. Yeah, this is an interesting topic. I like what you read earlier. I think I've read it somewhere, maybe a while back. It sounded very familiar. And of course, I'm familiar with Shaner Sensei's story. And I can probably come up with some ideas and theories about how that all works, but maybe we'll save that for another time. But yeah, I think when it comes to stuff, we use this. We use it to identify, to create a specialness about ourselves, an identity. This is who I am. This is what makes me special. And that could be things that we have, possessions. It could be experiences that we have. We take pictures, and how many of us are posting stuff on social media to prove that we were in this spot and that spot, and all of the crazy things that we do in that regard, to prove, that we are some kind of special in that way. And yeah, I mean, I think this is from my experience so far, this is a misunderstanding. I don't mean it's wrong or, people shouldn't do it. I'm just saying it's misunderstanding of this practice that we're talking about here tonight and that you're reading about from that article. So, I mean, I think it's quite a challenge, though. I seem to say this a lot in this class, to realize that, and to not become attached, or to not become more attached to things. I've talked to Curtis Sensei about this. He once told me that as we get older, we seemingly become more critical and more bitter. And I told him once, not long ago, that I found myself like slipping at times into that. And he said, yeah, I mean, this is a big issue, and this is why you want to practice. And so that maybe takes us to what you were saying about this whole statistical problem. Yeah, I mean, we could just say, like, leave it up to the universe and see what happens. Maybe you get hit on the head or something, and you suddenly become a genius or become enlightened or something. And you sit for 50 years and you never experience anything. But there is maybe a deeper thing going on there than we realize, right? So it's like who wants to wake up? Who is sitting, and who is, who wants to be something from sitting, right? This is the question we have to ask when we're trying to do something to feel better. Like, why do we do these kind of things? Who wants to feel better, right? Who is feeling unhappy or upset? So these are the kind of questions that sitting helps us face, I think. So, in my perspective, there is a certain kind of use to doing this practice. Of course, it's helpful to have a teacher. Curtis Sensei always talks about this, and my other teachers also, that you need someone who's gone through this to help guide. But no, I mean, I just think that we do the practice because we've signed up for it and said, okay, I'm in. For whatever reason, we happen to be here, and then we let the rest work itself out, right? And instead of trying to force anything to happen. And so I that's kind of how I see this thing working. But yeah, that's what I have to say.
Oh yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. And you're right. I mean, he's giving us a statistical situation there because you have to understand. I mean, Suzuki Sensei would come to the dojo sometimes and he'd look at everybody sitting there and he'd go, "Fellas, you're the chosen few, right here, the chosen few." And I used to think that, wow, I'm so special, But you have to remember, in our society today, we're super fortunate. I mean, if you're in Afghanistan right now, you ain't practicing. If you're in a war zone right now, you're not practicing. You're surviving, And I think that's more like what of all the millions of people, we live in a society where we have the advantages to practice. And some of us have the wherewithal to practice, whether it be the job we have, the money we have, the society we live in, our family that allows us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one, check that box. Okay, if you're in there, then you can practice. If you're not, then you're probably surviving, worried about living. So that's one thing. We've been very lucky. And then, of course, they always say you're fortunate to be alive. You were born as who you are for a reason. And I think that's another statistical. Okay, check that box. So I would also like to get Lillian Paiva's perspective, because it's always good.
Okay. Before I always start with the preamble.
Sure.
I'm loving these classes. I really am. Up until now, and you guys may still think so, I always thought I was the goofiest idiot out there making the dumbest mistakes. The only one who did that, because I would go to a seminar and everybody's in their gi, they've got their hakama on, they're looking sharp, they're sassy. The senpai almost got wings on their back. They look so cool. And I'm thinking, man, were these guys, their level is so amazing that they so have it together. So these classes have been really helpful because I get to see the discussions that we don't have at seminars. We have meals together, we have a drink together, but we're not talking, or maybe you guys are somewhere else and I'm not, but we're not getting a chance to have this meaty conversation. So I'm really loving this. And, there's a couple things I could say. Oh, geez, me, I could talk forever. One of the first things I will say is when it comes to the gi and those kind of things, I've always been on a budget. So I buy the nicest looking cheap gi I can find. If I can find it, okay? Because over here on the Big Island, we don't have any shops. I got to go track down somewhere. I'm always going, where'd you get your gi? Where'd you get your gi? How much did it cost? Okay, so, but it should be clean. It should be neat. When it gets worn, I look for a new one. I have 2 gis. so that I've always got a clean gi on hand. Now, going on to what you were saying about Suzuki Sensei and attachment. I think for a lot of years I had a lot of attachment, just because of my life. They say that people who hoard things sometimes have other issues going on, that hoarding or, overkeeping things you might need is tied into that. For me, I've always had a really tiny house. Tracy Sensei, I think one of the few people who've been to my house, yeah?
Yeah.
Very tiny house. And it's got my stuff, my husband's stuff, my kids' stuff that they haven't quite gotten out of here yet, and my grandkids' stuff. And it's little. So a couple years ago, thanks to Aikido and a relative who was very ill that had no kids, no husband, and she passed, and we helped clean out her house, I said, I'm never going to do this to my children. And I looked at my things, and thanks to Aikido, I was able to let go of this and say, do I really need this, or does somebody else need it more than me? And I honestly, even with that example of the relative, without the Aikido training about this stuff really isn't important. I'm here for whatever reason, and when I'm gone, wherever I go, I don't need it. So for me, that's been a very big lesson. And then I'll leave you with the thought that a couple of years ago, and this kind of pertains to some of the other stuff, a few years ago, it was the first time I really ever, I'm sure he said it before that, but the first time I really caught it when Curtis Sensei said the koan, form is not emptiness, emptiness is not form, form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. I had this hanging around the dojo, the house. For some reason, this really caught my attention. So that kind of ties into all of, I think, our discussion tonight. And yeah. I'll leave with that thought, I think.
Thank you, Lillian. Yeah, that's from the Heart Sutra. So I would recommend a book by Ken MacLeod called Arrow Through the Heart. Really goes into depth about form as emptiness, emptiness form. Maybe I'll use that in one of my future classes. That's a really good book, by the way.
Thank you.
That is, interesting. I really enjoy what you say there. And you're right. We don't have these conversations, these Zoom meetings allow these kind of conversations to come up. But I remember, I think it was the last board meeting we were at, and for the HKF, and you were there, and I don't know, Curtis Sensei corrected me or something, or there was some sort of thing, and you looked at me and you went, wow, I've never seen you like this before, Tracy. And I was just like, yeah, welcome to my world. This is how it's for me all the time. What are you talking about? But yeah, I know you don't ever see that, everybody's special, especially when you're like new and, oh my God, they're wearing a hakama, they're very special, wow, that person's ukemi is very special. We tend to have that, and we got to really be very careful on that. But with that in mind, I'd like to go to Toby Vogel Sensei, because I know he loves talking so much.
Thank you, Sensei. Yeah, well, the first time I remember when Curtis Sensei came to the Netherlands, to our house, he told us we were the ones.
The chosen few.
Yeah, we were the ones. And we got, actually, the universe kind of recognized that or confirmed that for us. Because when we went to Japan, the first time we went to Japan, we were taken out of the line of the flight, right? We were waiting, and the stewardesses approached us and said, okay, you guys, you have to wait here. So me and my dad, we were ready to go to Japan. And at that point, we had to wait. And we didn't know what was going on, and we were, waiting. What was the case is that the plane was overbooked. So not only did we hear for the first time that we were the chosen ones, We actually got recognition from the universe. They put us in first class to fly to Japan. So you can imagine that for us, it's really difficult to get rid of this idea of being the chosen ones, right? As we have many of these occasions where we're lucky and that things went well in our lives. So we went to Maui twice, right? We've been there twice. We can go to Japan every year. So these are things to be very grateful for. And that's why we also have all these pictures. I love the pictures, to save them and savor them for sentimental reasons, right? And just to be grateful that you had these experiences. But also to know that we are very lucky that we can do this. Like you said, if you were living in a different part of the world, you wouldn't have the opportunity. You wouldn't have the chance. So, and I really have a hard time letting go of the being special idea, because it also puts a great responsibility on you, because you have a chance to do this. So it's your responsibility to make good use of it. You cannot waste it away. And as I am very lazy, I also notice that sometimes I have the feeling that I'm wasting my time, right? I'm not making up for all the chances that I have gotten. So I love the story about the tree and the seeds. I'm curious how that continues next week.
Okay. That's good. So did you have any moments where the specialness crashed?
Sensei takes care of that sometimes, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure we'll find enjoyment in hearing some of those in the future. I'd like to ask Fincher Sterling, because he's always articulate in this kind of situation. Can't seem to hear you, Fincher, even though the mute is off. Well, we can come back to you. You've got technical difficulties, I understand. How about now? No? Okay. Well, in the meantime, okay, so I remember we were at a seminar. It was a big seminar. I believe it was the seminar when Shinichi Tohei first came to Maui. Otsuka Sensei was with him, and Otsuka Sensei was going to give a special class, I believe, on misogi. And I was one of the last people leaving the dojo, and there was a student there. He doesn't train anymore, but at the time he was high ranking, and he was probably Nidan at the time. And I see him go over to the mat, and he goes over, and of course, if you've been to Maui, it's this cupboard on this side that has all of our misogi bells in it. And some of the misogi bells are from the 1950s, literally, brought back from Japan. If you look at them, they look really, really beat up. Some of them have, patch holes in them. And everybody covets those bells to use during misogi because they sound really good if you can hit them. And that's the thing. If you can hit them, they sound really good. If you can't hit them, they don't sound so good. But this student went over there, grabbed two, came off the mat, put them in his bag, his dogi bag, and was going to leave the dojo. And I went, hey, what are you doing? He goes, oh, saving a bell. I said, what do you mean? He goes, tomorrow we got a special class, and there's going to be a lot of people here, and I don't want to have to get here so early, but I want to guarantee myself getting a good bell. So I'm taking one home with me. And I said, you think that's important? And he kind of looks at me, and I'm, of course, lower. I think I was lower ranked than him at the time. And I said, and I had just moved here, so that makes it even worse, of course. Here's an outsider telling this guy, what are you doing? And he's like, no, I think this is a good idea. And I said, dude, it doesn't matter. I said, who cares if you get a good bell or not? That's not the point, right? And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. He goes and takes and puts the bell back, And what's so funny, the next day, right? The next day we get to class and nobody hit the bell one time. It was a full-on lecture with no misogi whatsoever. It wouldn't have mattered here nor there if he took the bell home or not, but it was just the idea of he thought, oh, I want that special bell. So that's one of the stories I always think of when I think about having something special. Because Suzuki Sensei wasn't a big deal. He's like, just give me one bell. Give me one bell and I'll just hit it. That makes a difference. And what's so funny, sometimes I would use the old-fashioned bell, right? The old bells that are newer, that metal's much thicker and they don't get all deformed. And I was trying to hit the bell because that's the kind of bell I had, and I couldn't hit it for shit. And he just goes, give me that bell. Whoop. And he goes, bam! And I'm like, damn! He can even hit that junk bell. I mean, it didn't matter at all what kind of bell he was in. He just hit the bell. So with that being said, Fincher, you're back online, I see. Are you good? Can we hear you?
I don't know, something wrong with
Oh,
my...
we can hear you. You're good. You're loud and clear.
Oh, okay,
Perfect.
good. Yes, I did want to comment, actually the connection between your story and these rules was really good, because when you look at these two rules and most of the rules, it doesn't say, get the best training tools you can, make sure your gi is expensive and your Ken and Joe are perfect. But it actually talks about attitude. And of course, that's present in all of these rules about etiquette. And make sure you treat them right and make sure they're in proper order. And all these little things, hundreds of little rules that we're told to pay attention to. And I kind of cross-reference that with your tree and all of the seeds that it produces, and with Tohei Sensei's discussion about the subconscious, all these little things that you put into your subconscious. It's not every seed that you put in, it's the accumulation of all of those seeds that you're putting in your subconscious. And it's not one rule that makes you special. It's the attitude that you take with all of these rules, which I connected with your story as these little things you're putting in your subconscious. You're changing the way you look at your surroundings, the way you look at your slippers. Not necessarily that they're the best slippers, but you've given attention to them. You've got them placed properly. And the people you train with, you give respect. The sensei, you give respect. All of these things. So it was really a good cross-reference with that story, that these seeds are just little things that you're putting into your subconscious to change your attitude, to improve your attitude towards your surroundings and your the people you train with.
Yeah, I like that. I like that connection. I kind of gave you a heads up because Fisher and I and Toby had a little conversation last week about, oh yeah, I'm going to do these two, probably references to how you treat people and how you're, and I always pick out a story. It takes me a while. I usually take the weekend and just kind of go, okay, what kind of story am I going to tell? At the beginning, what quote am I going to write? I got freaking start going through books and that one's no good. Go through another book. That was okay. Let's Google something. Okay, that's no good. And then finally, I come about with, oh yeah, this article might work. Yeah, this will work. It's really long though, so I'll have to cut it. So we'll see that. We'll have fun with it next week as well. Yeah, thanks, Fincher. I appreciate that. That's all good information. And I'd like to go and ask Olaf Schubert Sensei what he thinks about this.
Yeah, morning.
Morning.
It's a lot of topics you're covering here. It's it's covering everything. Yeah, concerning stuff. I always find it interesting when Buddhist teachers say something about non-attachment. And if you have ever been to Japan and have ever been to a temple, and I have never seen so much gold in my whole life, okay? And for one of those temple bells, guys like us buy cars, you know? So, yeah, take everything with a grain of salt, I would say. It's always interesting to read these stories. And I think also this teacher, Ken MacLeod, he's saying this with the seeds to get some point across. And first of all, we are not trees and we don't give off seeds. And we have a consciousness that we can do our life this way or that way. And I'm not sure a tree has that choice. So yeah, it's a funny picture, and it's a really beautiful picture, but I don't think it applies 100% to a human condition. So I'm not sure I would like to compare myself to a tree seed or something and give it all up to chance, because if that was the case, I wouldn't be practicing Aikido or anything. I would just go about my life, and maybe it happens, maybe. And what should happen? What should happen? The tree seed doesn't think about becoming a tree. So we could just bubble along and like everybody else. Although I'm not sure everybody else is just dabbling along, you know. So we always assume, not always, but we often assume that we are the ones going a path and nobody else is. But if you have been reading a lot or seeing it, talking to other people, there are many ways and many paths. And I'm sure a lot of their teachers are telling them the same thing. You are special and only you have the chance to practice. And I've actually heard other teachers say that. You are here. You have the chance to discover this. All the rest of humanity is not. Well, I want to raise my hand. I am, because I'm practicing Aikido. But he doesn't know that. He's a yoga teacher, you know. So, and the same for us, okay? We practice Aikido and we think, oh, we got it down. We have the key principles and we have the chance. And next door, and you might never know, but there's a school of yoga or Zen or whatever, and they are practicing exactly the same thing. So it's very interesting, this kind of narrow view that we have, and try to make a worldview out of it. So, yeah.
I think, yeah, I don't disagree with some of the things you say. I mean, there's a dichotomy to everything, and I think that we tend to establish, we do get narrow vision. We do get, they would say, you know, a lot of times you get so narrow that you forget to look around you and just to see, because it's not about you doing something, it's about what that something is doing to you. And I think like you said, there's many ways to practice. You know, we've selected Aikido, and it gives us a lot of tools, because that's all practice really is. Practice has tools, and whether you use the tools or not, that's one thing. But it's the tools that you, and I mean the tools meaning not the physical tools, but the meditation practices, the breathing practices, those are all tools for you to look inward, like Charles Boyer was saying. You know, the meditation and not only that, but the key principles practice is another tool that we use to establish mind-body unification, to know what that is, to really center ourselves in our practice. And I think that's, yeah, of course, it's not, we're not trees, but I think the analogy of realizing that you're not special or not special, you can be both. It's both special and not special. It's both one, both two. With that being said, John Hara Sensei, he's a priest. His temple bell was stolen a few years ago here on Maui. But John, talk to us about this subject. What do you think? You've been to Japan. You've been to many temples.
Yeah, it's funny that Shubert Sensei said that this idea of non-attachment and you go to the temple, my temple included. There's this beautiful lacquered and gold ornaments that decorate the altar, right? And I understand completely. Thinking about special, I don't remember where I heard this from, but this idea of being special and not special at the same time makes complete sense to me. As far as being special, if you think about how large the universe is, and to have the right moment and right conditions to be in existence is completely a miracle, right? Your parents or my parents had to meet exactly at this moment to be able to create me or you. And so in that sense, I do believe that each person is special. And when we have the intention and attitude that's corrupted to be selfish, to think that we're special, that's when we're corrupted and we're no longer special. But yeah, this idea of keeping equipment with treating equipment with respect and keeping it clean makes complete sense of our practice, as far as making sure that we're aware. If we have a stink dogi, then someone else is affected by that. And also, especially now, with coronavirus and stuff, you want to make sure that your gi is clean, right? Your clothes are clean, you are clean. So treating your equipment with respect is also kind of treating yourself with respect, I think. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much, John. And Christelle, how's Germany treating you? Are you doing good? Can you talk to us?
Yes. Doing this lesson, I was thinking where is my point of being special? And I remember a story with Kurt Sensei at Boomward seminar. There came a man in, not an Aikido guy, and he was a little bit disturbed, I think, and a little bit crazy. And all the people stay away from him, but Kurt Sensei talked to him. And we all the Aikido people have the feeling he's a little bit crazy and so on. And after the discussion with Kurt Sensei, he said, "You all go away, and I talk to him." And I think of my opinion of being special also, and I have a belief system. I think that you have to do a lot of work. You have to work hard to earn this opportunity. And as I see that Kurt Sensei was talking to this guy and really listened to him, I said, okay, maybe this is a belief system too. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to be with Kurt Sensei and all the Aikido people, and this for me is a worldwide community, and I'm very grateful for this connection. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to travel to Japan and so on. But I think I have a belief system, and it's time, and sometimes it's very hard for me if the people don't work hard. So that they, yeah, this was I was thinking of.
Oh,
Okay.
good. Yeah, I enjoyed that story. That's a good story. Yeah, not only Curtis Sensei, but Suzuki Sensei used to get some, back in the, when Suzuki Sensei was, of course, in training in the 70s, there was a lot of people that were, alternate types of universes, and they were really into magical thinking, and they would flock around the dojo because, Suzuki Sensei never turned anyone away. And yeah, I mean, he would listen to everybody, and with his whole mind body, and that's something I think we always could count on, and you can always count on that from Curtis Sensei or anybody. Any teacher should really cultivate that of listening with their whole mind body to whoever it is. Everybody wants to be heard, and if you don't listen to them, or if you start thinking what you're going to say before they've even finished, you're not connected, and that's not real listening, and that's not giving somebody the opportunity to express themselves. So I'd like to have Gloria express herself, because I know she's got something to say, and I always enjoy what she has to say.
Well, I have to say that, first of all, I don't believe I've ever been told in a dojo that I'm one of the chosen ones. So we can get that out of the way. Partly, I think, something I inherited from my mother. It's called a paradigm that I always had to work hard for everything I got. And so I worked hard, to get where I am, and have had a couple of experiences where I was doing something and something just happened. I didn't have to try to make it happen, and it's almost hard to deal with. One story about Shinichi Tohei Sensei, when he was over in Maui. I think it was the last seminar, but the first evening we were downstairs, having social and eating and so on. So he gets up to leave, and I was standing close to the door, and he came by, and he reached out and took my hand, and it was the most incredible experience I've ever had. I could feel his hand softly in mine, but between the hand and, say, like the elbow, it just felt like and looked like just a golden ball of energy. I felt nothing except this incredible energy. And I don't know, I just wondered if anybody else ever had an experience like that, shaking hands with him. It just, I really didn't need the rest of the seminar. I could just sort of kind of sit in that energy. And as it turned out, I had injured my shoulder beforehand, and I didn't get to do much practice. I did a lot of watching for that one. But it wasn't because he took my hand or shook my hand, but it was an amazing experience for me.
Yeah, I had this similar experience with Toy Sensei when I first met him in Oregon, and I always felt like his hand was like a big hot water bottle. It was so warm, so soft, and I just melted into it because I was looking for that firm handshake, and it was not that. And that was like the first time I'd ever experienced something like that, probably similar to what you had experienced. But I see Sayaka's online there, and I'd like to have her give a little input on this subject. Sayaka, can you talk a little bit?
The subject is being special?
Yeah, being special. Well, about treating your equipment. I know you got there a little late. But tell us something about headquarters.
To deal with stuff.
Yeah.
Material.
Of course. Sure.
It I think it's kind of Japanese culture, but it always when you use something, you have to treat that with the respect. And it was really strict at the headquarters. You have to treat the thing you use. You always show the respect, and you cannot walk on the sword, the bokken or jaw, because it's not respectful. Or um, your doggy, your hakama, everything you have to treat everything with respect, and keep it clean. It's very important. But I think it's basic Japanese cultural thing. Like you cannot step on the newspaper or book. It's very big in Japan, something like that, and it's in all Japanese, in the mind of Japanese people. So I think it wasn't very natural for us to do the treat things with respect. And yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I can see that. It's kind of like when you go to headquarters and they start wiping off the luggage. They're making sure everything's clean and orderly, and don't step over anything. Exactly what she said. Yeah, that's all true. It goes to how you treat the inanimate objects. You got to treat people the same way. You treat them. It's not just stuff. And it's both special and not special. That's what I like to say. Well, with that in mind, it's time for the end of the story. In fact, I've already started looking because I'm going to have to find another one because this is done, over with. So we last left off our prince. He'd been betrayed by his black sheep brothers who'd stolen everything and left him in tatters along the side of the road. So we'll move forth with the ending. See, said they, as soon as they came home, not only have we brought you the fruit of happiness, but the sword of brightness and the white bird into the bargain. As for the younger brother, they told the king that he had stopped over at the tavern yonder and had spent all his money in eating and drinking, just as they themselves had really done. But the white bird did nothing but weep and weep, and neither this brother nor that could draw the sword of brightness from its leather scabbard. And when the king came to taste the fruit of happiness, it was bitter as gall. So after all, the two gained nothing by what they had done. But the prince was not for giving up all that he had lost. Without trying to get what he could get back again, off he marched in his rags and tatters until he came to the castle where the king, his father, lived. Up he stepped to the door and knocked, but nobody would let him in because he looked like nothing but a beggar. So down he sat beside the gate of the castle garden, since he could not come into the house. After a while, a few folks came out, one by one, two by two, to walk in the garden and take the air, and all the time the prince sat there and nobody knew. Last of all came the old king, and with him walked the white bird. The king was for passing the lad by all, as all the rest had done, but as soon as the white bird saw him, she knew who he was and ran to him and threw her arms around his neck and kissed him. "Here's my own sweetheart," said she, and as he came back to me, and he has come back to me again. The prince told the king that all that had happened from the beginning to the end, and how it really was he who had found the white bird, the sword of brightness, and the fruit of happiness. "Yes, yes," said the king, "that is all very well, but it is just the tale your other brothers told me. Now, can you draw the sword of brightness from the leather scabbard?" "Oh, yes," said the prince, "I can do that easily enough." So the sword was brought to him, and whisk, he whipped out the blade out of the scabbard so that the light of it dazzled the eyes of everybody that looked upon it. Then the king saw what had happened as plain as the nose on his face, and was for punishing the elder brothers as they deserved, but nobody could find them. For as soon as they heard that the youngest prince had come home again, they packed off without waiting to learn more news. So why do I call this story of the white bird? Listen, any Tom, Jake, or Harry might have found the sword of brightness or the fruit of happiness, but you may depend that nobody but a real prince could ever have found the white bird. The end. With that, the story's over, the class is over, and I'll see you next Monday. And we'll finish the story that I started in the beginning. It'll be even better, I'm sure of it. And thank you all very much. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. And I'll see you guys next week.